Free Guy is a 2021 science fiction action comedy movie that is basically the answer to the question, what would happen if you mixed The Truman Show and The Matrix with SimCity, Grand Theft Auto and Fortnite? Well, as it turns out, it's actually very entertaining and has some stunning visual effects. A total of 11 VFX houses worked together to produce the visual effects for this movie. Digital Domain, Scanline and Industrial Light & Magic were primaries, and Raynault VFX, Mammal Studios, Capital T, Lola Visual Effects, Twisted VFX, Studio D and BOT VFX were secondaries, and Halon worked with Digital Domain to provide Previs work. VFX supervisor Swen Gillberg was in charge of dividing up the VFX workload, and sequences were given out according to each VFX vendor's strengths. However, we were told that Scanline VFX supervisor Bryan and Digital Domain VFX supervisor Nikos Kalaitzidis did jokingly arm wrestle for a particular sequence, although we weren't told which sequence this was or who won. Free Guy actually has 3 different worlds. The photoreal virtual world inside the Free City game, as seen by the characters who form part of the game, the lower resolution game-like version as seen on the monitors of the people playing the game, and then the real world set in Seattle, where the game's creators, designers and players actually live. Digital Domain's VFX supervisor Nikos Kalaitzidis told us that a tremendous amount of design work went into creating the look for the video game version of the gaming world. Not only did they research the subject heavily, but they also used gameplays made by their own in-house VFX editor as reference. The director Sean Levy used the assistant VFX coordinator Charlie Lemmer, who is also an avid gamer, as a consultant to help get the look and feel of the gameplay. This amount of research and reference material was essential because finding the balance between virtual and reality was such a fine line to walk. If they made the characters look too real, it would look like the people playing Free City were watching a movie on their monitors rather than playing a video game. If they made it look too simple, the transition from seeing the game on the monitor to being inside the video game world would be too jarring and the audience would lose empathy for the main characters. In addition to this, the VFX team had to avoid falling into the unnerving realm of Uncanny Valley. Eventually, they settled on a stylized Grand Theft Auto type of look with a more vibrant Fortnite-esque color scheme. For the numerous stunt scenes happening throughout the movie, the VFX team had to produce 46 unique digi-doubles, including the characters Millie, Badass, Monster, Duke, Keys and Buddy. In order to create the digi-double for Guy, Ryan Reynolds had to visit Digital Domain's facilities where they took an ICT scan of his face. Basically, an ICT scan uses a light stage to shoot light from different angles at a subject, in this case Ryan Reynolds. The data of how this light reacts is processed, and this supplies detailed maps including displacements, depth and area of subsurface scattering, and specular values on the sheen of his skin. The ICT scan was combined with performance capture data received from Ryan Reynolds' head-mounted camera and the actor going through his lines to create the photoreal digi-double to substitute the actor for the stunt scenes. For the gameplay versions of the same characters, they used the same digi-doubles. However, these digi-doubles were far too detailed to be the digital avatars played by people in the real world, so the detail and texture had to be dialed back a bit and their features smoothed out. They were also rendered with a small shutter angle, mainly 90 degrees, but sometimes 45. This reduced the amount of motion blur and gave them a slightly jerkier video game motion. Lola VFX was given the task of digitally transplanting Ryan Reynolds' face onto the body of Duke. In order to do this, Lola used their own specialized lighting rig that they affectionately called the Egg. The Egg is a series of programmable LED panels and 6 cameras that are positioned all around the actor, forming the shape of, you guessed it, an egg. After Lola received the live-action plates for the sequence, they hired a stand-in actor that had a similar build, height, hair color and complexion to that of the person they were going to digitally transplant, in this case Ryan Reynolds. The actor sat inside the egg, and then using the live action plates as a reference, they got the actor to look directly at the individual coloured LEDs in different positions around the egg, getting the actor to turn his head at the same angles as the actor playing Duke did in the live action plates. The position of each of these coloured LEDs for each shot is then recorded, and these were the markers that Ryan had to hit for each shot, thus ensuring his face was always at the correct angle for every shot. Lola then proceeded to pre-light the egg. Referencing the live action plates, they adjusted and recorded the LED lighting to match that of every shot on the live action plates. This is a laborious and time-consuming process that took nearly 3 days. Finally, Ryan could come in to have his performance recorded, acting towards the LED markers, and his face lit perfectly to match that of Duke. Although they did have to use some spray-on suntan makeup to get that bodybuilder orange. Principal photography took place in Boston, so naturally the primary look and layout of Free City was based on Boston. Using reference photos, LiDAR scans and data gathered during principal photography, including drone and aerial footage that was taken for the badass opening shot, Scanline built 1.5 miles of high-resolution downtown, starting from the Free City Bank location down to Hitman's Beach. This downtown area was surrounded by 3 miles of mid-resolution city environment, which in turn was surrounded by 6.2 miles of low-resolution environment. Scanline's asset team created a library of 140 different buildings, over 150 types of trees and plants, 86 different model vehicles, and 284 different props to dress the environment. Special attention had to be paid to aging and adding dirt and grime buildup to these CG assets, in order to perfectly match them to their real-life counterparts so that the transition from live-action plate to CG was seamless. Scanline also spent a lot of time developing the look for destruction on the buildings within the video game world. They wanted it to look like a video game glitching, but to still have the weight and emotional impact of a real building falling. During post-production, for the scene where badass hands Guy the evidence, the filmmakers felt a reshoot was necessary so that Channing Tatum could say an extra line that was crucial to help the audience follow the story. Unfortunately, it wasn't practical or logistically possible for Tatum to come back to reshoot the line, so the filmmakers asked Digital Domain if there was something they could do. Enter Charlatan. Charlatan is a proprietary tool created by Digital Domain that can merge one performer's face with that of another, and like a lot of modern-day VFX tools, it uses AI. Similar to Weta Digital's deep learning system, Digital Domain's tool uses AI machine learning, which is basically a library of information that the tool can learn from. This information is called training data. Normally, Charlatan would require hours with the actor to compile enough data. That data would involve 5 4K cameras shooting from different angles, whilst the actor said a series of visemes whilst expressing different emotions. Visemes are the visual equivalent of phonemes. While phonemes are sentences designed to cover every sound in the English language, visemes are sentences designed to cover every facial movement. One example is, "The odd toy cow eats green oat cheese." Unfortunately, Digital Domain didn't have this data, so they got Tatum to record the new audio performance for the new shot and then began to compile as much training data as possible. They used Tatum's previous performances, and they also requested any additional takes, over-length clips, and bad takes, and fed it all into the machine learning engine. Digital Domain artists then created a new facial model which they animated to lip sync with Tatum's audio. This was then combined with a neutral render from Charlatan. Please give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget the links to the music used in this video are in the video description, and let us know in the comments below which movie VFX you'd like to see behind next.